Alright, welcome back to the channel. Warhammer Man back in the studio. And before we get started, if you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, and warcry content as well. Everything from reactions, reviews, news, painting, modeling, conversion tutorials. Check out the playlists on the channel. That being said, let's jump right in. Dominate the Underhive with the psychic powers of the Delaque Spyker. Uh-oh. Or Spyker? I can't even tell if that's an actual error or like misspelling, or if he's actually called the Spyker. I'm assuming that's his real name, so we'll give him some credit. We've seen Necromunda expand out into the wide open spaces of the Ashe Waste, but that doesn't mean there aren't still plenty of horrors lurking in the Underhive, just waiting to be revealed, such as the big-brained behemoth known as the Delaque. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. I've always called it Delaque, but I've heard other people say Delaque. So depending on how ethnic you want to get with it, but it does look like he's called the Spyker. So model wise, I would say this dude is pretty awesome. I mean, it's definitely grimdark as it gets. You can see his body's kind of like broken down, and he's like put in some kind of weird like restraints, and then he kind of has just like, yeah, awesome. I mean, definitely like some metal and like psychic augmentation stuff going on, being like injected with some crazy chemicals to like enhance his psychic abilities. And I'm assuming that his head probably didn't used to be that size. So pretty awesome model, I have to say. Unfortunately, I would say probably like 99% this is going to be forgeworld. But definitely opens the door for some pretty awesome conversions, because it kind of reminds me of the Blackstone Fortress like chaos guys, the like psychers from that. Very cool though. I really like this model. Super cool. Need to see some more pictures. Oh, there we go. As anyone who's read the House of Shadows knows, the creation of the Spyker, isn't a straightforward process. Gangers with a glimmer of psychic potential can be force-fed a concentration solution of ghast, undergoing a dubious kind of evolution. At the end of the process, if their brain doesn't explode, that's a harsh side effect, they're gifted a fabulous cape and sent off to work with the Delaque gang. So it sounds like they are given this stuff they're being injected with is that ghast, and that is what's like augmentating his psychic powers, or her, I don't know, its psychic powers. The resulting Spyker is a psychic sponge, soaking up dirty little secrets of anyone nearby. Whilst this alone makes them valuable, if somewhat babbling, informants for a Delaque gang, they also hold their own in a fight. Okay, so that's why where the name Spyker comes from, is they're a psychic sponge soaking up little secrets from anyone around. So that makes sense. That makes sense. And then obviously, it says they're also able to hold their own in battle. So probably has some like cool offensive psychic powers, but probably gives you some sort of like tactical edge as well. Really nice looking model. I love this. These like vials on the vat of gas are really cool. Full on injections. I like the leather cloak. You see he's like strapped in. He's almost like on a gurney. You can see like the metal bars like behind him, and then he's like strapped in there. Pretty cool. I like it. Oh, and these are, I thought this was just like bracelets at first, but it looks like just more of these injections. So this dude is juiced up. Yeah, very, very cool. I like it. It's got like the nodes coming in here, like just pumping him full. I mean, it looks like he's about to explode, honestly. These floating psychers can unleash a variety of unnatural powers, quite distinct from the subtle psychoteric whispers available to Zeitgeists, which are currently part of like the expansion that you can have in the Delaque gang. So they're like the second kit that came out. You have like your regular Delaque gang, then you have it's like the Noct Ghouls and Zeitgeists, and then the Piscean Spectre, I think. They're all like the expansion kit that you get. And then obviously this, like I said, will probably be a forgeworld model edition as well. So force enemies to flee in terror with a psychic scream, cripple their minds with a psychic assault, or even use a force blast to send them flying like so many plastic carrier bags on the wind. So very cool. 3 different psychic powers to choose from, all with some nice effects. Although they're recruited as hanger-on, a Spyker is always ready for a fight. They're treated like a regular ganger when you select your crew. Of course, as non-sanctioned psykers, anyone who takes them out of action can collect quite a bounty on their oversized heads. Okay, so that's cool. Take him as a regular ganger, part of your crew. He's not like a hired hand or anything like that. So he's still gonna like level up and get better and everything theoretically. So very cool. Okay, and here we can kind of see without the cloak on, like the supports going to like the backpack. I mean, from right here it looks like he has a walker. It's like an old man with a walker. But obviously, as we kind of see, it's like some sort of like restraints basically. Very cool. I really like this. I like the idea of it. One, and then I also like the execution. Like it's a cool idea, and then the model looks great. So yeah, pre-order from ForgeWorld's web store soon. Very cool. I like it. I like the idea of it. The execution is phenomenal. This is a great model. ForgeWorld's a weird situation for me too. Like, I really like ForgeWorld's models, but I really hate resin, especially on something that's like brittle to potentially break. So with like a Telemon Dreadnought, it's like, okay, I can deal with ForgeWorld because it's a cool model and it doesn't have like a bunch of like brittle parts or anything like that. It's going to hold up nicely over time. But like something like this guy or some of these like smaller models, like I don't know, I just feel like these things end up breaking off for sure. At least the ones that only have like one connection point. And while you can be careful with your models, obviously make sure they don't break, they shouldn't completely eliminate me from buying the ForgeWorld models. But the truth is, I would much rather do like a conversion of something like this and kind of make it my own. As where if I'm trying to convert like a Telemon, it's not really like viability in the same way. I mean, it is, but I think one of the more extensive conversions that I did of a ForgeWorld vehicle was actually of the Psycharian battle tank. So I made one of those a while back, and it looked pretty awesome. I still have some pictures of it, but I got rid of it, and it's really nice, and I love that thing. It was awesome. But the ForgeWorld kit was cool, but the gun barrels and some of the other brittle parts just looked like they were always about to break, so I opted to make my own. It was pretty cool, and ended up selling it for a, reasonable price. But now with the plastic ones coming out, I would definitely jump on getting another Psycharian, or probably two, to replace the one I had before. So for me, plastic is huge. I think for a lot of people, it's a weird dynamic. If you're new to the game, you probably don't like plastic, don't like resin, or don't have experience with it, so it can be intimidating, and typically the kits are like a little more detailed. If you're in the like middle ground and you're comfortable with like conversions and cleaning up and reshaping stuff, resin's really not that bad. But then you sort of get to that point where eventually the limitations or extra work that you have to put in on resin have to be worth it, or else you just pass on that. So like if I was going to do something like the Astraeus, like super heavy Primaris grav tank or something like that, for sure, that's cool. It doesn't have a ton of like brittle parts on it. I would, it's a massive tank, so you're going to be taking care of it. It's not going to be like in a case where it could potentially get broken or anything. So I could see going with something like that, or again, like some of the other like bigger chunker vehicles and stuff like that. But overall, I'm just not a fan. I understand some people don't care. I've done commissions before where I can't remember what brand it was, but some of the models were metal and some were resin, and then some models were actually a combination of metal and resin. I'm not a big fan of that. They were okay. They look nice overall. But the truth is, I just much prefer plastic. I like to do conversions. Plastic requires very little like cleaning. I don't have to wash it. I don't have to dry it. I don't have to reshape it. The worst you have to do with plastic typically is, cut it off the sprues and clean up some mold lines. And without a doubt, Games Workshop kits go together beautifully. So for me, plastic is by far superior. Also, if you have to cut plastic, you can use plastic glue to rebond it. If you do conversions, it's much more easy to work with than like metal. Resin is somewhere in between. I think my biggest problem with resin is just how brittle it is. And if you haven't dealt with resin a lot and you're like, oh no, you're overreacting, trust me, resin is okay for a while, sometimes even a couple years, but it gets more and more brittle over time. And that's actually part of my argument with like 3D printing as well. I haven't had like any issues really with filament 3D printing, but as far as resin 3D printers, it's the same thing. You know, if you drop one of those models, or just over time as it starts to just kind of break down, they will become brittle. So, you know, I'm not saying that they'll never invent a resin that doesn't do that, but every resin I've ever used from pretty much any company, including Games Workshop / forgeworld, you know, Finecast / forgeworld, is all just, in my opinion, it's just trash because it's so brittle. But, you know, again, I've dealt with, you know, probably more models than most people will in their entire lifetime. So, you know, for me, I don't like the idea of buying something at a premium, getting it, and then having to clean it, potentially like have to pull out some heat and start melting and bending and reshaping it, and having to clean up like serious mold lines and imperfections in the cast. And then on top of that, having to break out like putty to make things fit correctly and cover seams. That's the experiences I've had with probably 90% of the resin that I've gotten, even the really expensive stuff, from the brands I've dealt with. I'm not saying there's not resin out there that would be fine, but for what you pay for Forge World models and stuff, you shouldn't, you know, I would imagine that quality control would be saying, wait, whoa, no way that's leaving the shop on a $200 and something model looking like that. I would expect them to have much better quality control. I purchased 2 Fire Raptors from Forge World, and they were just absolutely horrendous. I had to get like replacement pieces for them and stuff. The hull pieces were terrible. They were basically like rubber banded to a piece of cardboard, and they were rubber banded too tight, so they were like crimped in. It was just terrible. So, you know, anyway, I didn't really want this to be like a Forge World rant, but if you've never dealt with resin, trust me, it can be an absolute nightmare. And you feel like with plastic, especially Games Workshop kits, they're expensive, but you get what you pay for with them. With resin, that's not always the case. They could be really cool kits, really cool models, but the actual quality when you get your hands on them sometimes is just so terrible. So that's really my main problem. But really cool model. If it was plastic, I would 100% be picking this dude up just because it's a cool model to paint. I don't have Delaque gang or anything. But the truth is, yeah, I mean, there's no way. There's been a lot of really cool like bounty hunters and like special models for Necromunda specifically from Forge World, and I don't have any of them just because of that reason. So definitely a missed opportunity for me. If it came in plastic, I would probably have every single one of them. So maybe that's just my weird hang up. But let me know what you guys think down below. Not only of this model, not only of the potential rules for this guy, and do you think he's cool? Do you think it looks good? Paint job's awesome, etc. You know, you're going to make your own. You motivated by this? Do you want to do a conversion, etc.? But also, let me know your experiences with not only Games Workshop plastic versus Games Workshop resin versus Forge World resin versus like other companies' resin or metal models you've dealt with. Because I think for me, the tier chart is I hate metal, I dislike resin, and I love plastic. So that's like my pretty much thing. So pretty much if it's made out of metal, there is close to a 0% chance that I want to own it or have anything to do with it. Very close to 0% chance. If it's made out of resin, it's probably like a 5% chance, and it almost undoubtedly is part of an Adeptus Custodes army that I have. And then if it's made out of plastic, you know, I'm all about it. So that's it. Let me know what you think. I'm curious about your opinions as well, and if other people feel the same way. I've met lots of people that absolutely love resin. I've met lots of people that absolutely love metal, and then I think most people prefer plastic. But I like to hear other people's opinions, and you know, my decisions have been made over a 30-year period playing in this game and everything like that. And I think sometimes you can have a good experience with something for 1 or 2 or 5 years, but I think when you start getting towards like 10 and 20-year-old resin or metal models, you'll start to understand where I'm coming from. But that's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. If you enjoyed the video today, if you're looking forward to this guy, make sure to like and subscribe. We put out at least one video every single day on Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, or warcry. Horus Heresy as well with the new release. And then, of course, if you're into any kind of painting, modeling, conversion tutorials, check out the playlist down below. We're a commission-based studio. We show off all the models that come out of the studio, do all kinds of tutorials on how to make custom bases, how to do our paint jobs, and always list the order and steps that we use. If you ever have a question on one of those videos, feel free to reach out to me. But other than that, obviously, reactions, reviews, news, all that good stuff. But that's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.